Welcome to Bird Camp Radio, where the coveys rise from the high pines, marsh valleys, sagebrush seas, and the shelf rock ledges. Here at camp, the fire's always glowing, the dogs are never far, and the stories of birds, wild places, and the upland life are just beginning. This is Bird Camp Radio. Before we get into today's episode, I want to thank a company Rachel and I personally trust, Pet Commute. We have worked with them several times ourselves, and I can tell you firsthand, they are reliable, safe, punctual, and they give frequent transport updates. That peace of mind matters, especially when it's your dog. If you're a breeder, buyer, trainer, running field dog trials, traveling to a hunt, or honestly just need to get a pet somewhere safely, Pet Commute is a perfect fit for bird dog folks. They offer free transportation quotes, and make sure to mention Bird Camp Radio to get 10% off your pet's travel. Check the link in the show notes, our social media bios, or the comments. I highly recommend them. Welcome back, everyone, to the Bird Camp Radio podcast. It's your host, Kellen Golightly, and we're excited to be here for the 31st episode of Bird Camp. Today we have our guest, Eric Hobbs. He sent in his bio just a little bit earlier, and I'm going to hurry and read that for us before we get started. Eric Hobbs grew up in central Idaho, surrounded by mountains and endless hunting opportunities. Lucky to have a father who loved both the mountains and hunting, he spent much of his early life immersed in those pursuits. Each year, his family hunted deer, elk, and antelope, with everyone putting in for tags, so there was always something to chase. Trophy hunting was never the primary goal. It wasn't that they didn't appreciate a good animal, but filling the tag and putting meat in the freezer was what mattered most. While big game hunting filled packs and freezers, much of Eric's passion was built in the colder months chasing waterfowl. With both his father and grandfather deeply rooted in wing shooting, he spent countless mornings setting decoys and sitting in blinds. The sight of ducks finishing with their feet down or large Canadian geese crashing into decoys left a lasting impression. That was the pinnacle until one experience changed everything. In his late 20s, Eric met a young woman from Italy while training horses. She invited him to visit her home country and meet her family. During that trip, her grandfather, Sergio, who had spent nearly 50 years breeding and training English setters, took Eric into the rolling hills of Tuscany with his dogs. Never one to pass up a hunting opportunity, Eric joined without hesitation. That day completely shifted his perspective on hunting and bird dogs, and from that moment on, he knew he needed one of those dogs in his life. 2 years later, Eric began working with his first pointing dog, starting from scratch with little knowledge of how to handle such high-energy, intelligent animals. The learning curve was steep, requiring patience and a willingness to seek guidance. Fortunately, he had strong support. He had married the young woman from Italy, and both she and her grandfather brought decades of experience to help him along the way. With over 50 years of knowledge at his fingertips, the process became far more approachable. As time went on, Eric built connections within the industry and became part of the pointing dog community, a group he describes as truly exceptional. Eric, we're excited to have you on. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, Kellen. I am.
Hey, well, we're excited to have you on and talk about a great bio. That was a lot of fun to be able to read, and you sent it to Doc for him. I'm like, this is gonna be great. I like this. So I'm excited to do it with you today and get to know you a little bit more and why you choose what you do. So before we get started into it, as everybody knows, we want to play a quick game of rapid fire around the campfire with Eric before getting too deep into it. So if you're ready, Eric, we'll give it a go.
Yeah, let's make her happen.
All right. Ready, set, and we'll go. Favorite bird to hunt?
Oh, chuckers.
Favorite shotgun gauge?
20.
Morning or evening hunts?
Morning.
Favorite dog breed?
English setter.
Game bag or vest?
Vest.
Favorite state to hunt?
Idaho.
Solo or with friends?
With friends.
Public or private land?
Public.
Dog's name?
Bora.
Limit or memories?
Memories.
Hey, there we go. That's looking good. And we'll release that at the end of the podcast. So everybody stay tuned, but it looks like it's going to upset some things. So that was good. You came into it prepared. So, well, I
Ah,
mean, this is going to be fun, man. Like most of you already know, and like we talked, we like to really focus on the bio of each guest on this podcast and really get to know them and why they choose upland game hunting and what got them into it and why do they continue to go back to it each year. So going from the beginning, how did it all get started for you as a young kid or whenever you got into it? How did it all happen?
I can't remember a time that we weren't hunting or fishing or camping. That was just how life was. Until I was probably almost in high school, I didn't know that people didn't live like that. It was just part of it, and like I said in the bio, I was lucky to have a dad that just did it. We were always hunting something. I mean, he had us drug out there in the duck decoys just as we were big enough to walk around and wander and get yelled at for moving and being in the way and everything else. But he never quit taking us, and at that point, as I grew up, I wasn't legally old enough to drive at night, but he let me go hunt for the day anyway. And I'd killed a deer with a friend. We came back after dark, and Mom was upset, but Dad wanted to be, but he couldn't. It was part of the game and how it was, and so I've just always kind of done it. As far as being in the woods, and my grandfather had really nice pointing dogs that I heard a million stories about, but I never. By the time I was around, he'd kind of got out of them, and Dad had moved out of Oregon into Idaho, so where he was in Idaho, there wasn't as much opportunity for the pointing dogs. There was a lot more waterfowl and big game opportunities, and so I didn't grow up with pointing dogs. I just had heard the stories and knew what they were. And as time passed, I ended up over there in Italy, and Sergio was more than happy to take me one day. And when I followed those dogs around that morning, that was it. It was like a drug. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm like, okay, this is a game I want to play. And as luck would have it, he had another set of puppies. He got us a dog, that good original female, Oliu. The poor thing, how she ever made it, I'll never know. I mean, we were on Skype with Sergio trying to plant birds, train this dog. We didn't have a collar. It was an absolute wreck, to be honest. But the bloodline was strong enough that she kind of made it through. And then once we kind of got rolling, then at that point, Ketty, she tied in with a gentleman named Frank Puccio, and he honestly really changed everything because she went to work for him and got to work with that dog, got to learn a lot. And at that point, the rest was history. And we ended up having a litter of pups. I have one with me right now, and then her full brother is also out here in North Dakota with me. And so I've got access to 2 3-year-old dogs right now that are just phenomenal. And it all started on just a chance one day that I happened to jump in the car and go for a ride.
Wow, that is great. That's just fascinating. So you were over in Italy training horses, is that right?
No, so I was still working with horses here when I met her, and she was from Italy. And so after about a year or so, I flew over there, to see things and meet some people, and she had told me that her grandpa hunted, and he was kind of the only one left in the family that really did. and he had to be in his late 60s, early 70s then, and that was 10 years ago. And so, or better, it's probably been better than that, probably closer to 15 now. And he was excited that I also hunted just to have somebody around. And so he was more than happy to take me up there. And, it was summertime, so we just went up to a spot where they were training pups, and there was, other people there. And I knew 3 words in Italian at the time. I could find a bathroom and tell them I was hungry, and that was about it. But I did find out on that trip that hunters, doesn't matter where you are, when you're in the group, you're in the group. And they just kind of took me in and said, all right, well, let's go.
That's actually pretty neat. Cool experience to be able to go over to Italy and have that kind of opportunity. So what was it kind of like there? Did you get many hunting opportunities while you were over there? And what is it like that way? Is it a little bit different than what we have here in the States, or?
It is different in a sense. So I was married to her for, probably 14 years or so. And I got to go over there quite a lot. And every time I went, Sergio had dogs ready to go. Whether it was summertime and they were training, whether it was hunting season and we could go hunt wild birds. The one big difference I notice over there is that where here I see a lot of people have their own property, or they really train by themselves a lot and have their little spots that they go do their things, where over there, essentially there's a property and several people will go to it. So a property will raise birds, put them out, and you just show up, pay for birds, and you get a certain acreage to work your dogs on for the day.
Wow.
And they'll go put birds out for you to do that. And then the biggest difference just in culture is you go train in the morning and then you have to stay and eat lunch and drink wine. And I don't think that's negotiable. I think that's just how it was.
That's awesome. Pretty neat.
We got to do some wild bird hunting over there too. I wasn't over there in the fall a lot because I was hunting here when I could, obviously, and but they chase some woodcock over there, and they've got some wild quail and some wild pheasants. I was there in Tuscany, so there was, as far as wild birds went, that was about it. But guys would go to Serbia and hunt chukars and huns, and even in southern Italy, I knew some guys that would go down there and hunt chukars and huns down in that country. I just never went and did it with them.
Wow. See, when I think of Italy, I would have never thought that they would have that kind of population and variety of species of upland game. Never really thought about it, so that's actually pretty neat to learn about.
Yeah, it was definitely quite the experience to be over there, and it really did. It's really what started the whole thing as far as deep as I am into it now. We have tenfold the hunting here in the States without question, as far as bird numbers and places you can go, and it's pretty tight over there. But I was with a group of old timers essentially that they had their ins.
Yeah, that would make quite the difference there. So when it comes to the hunters, do they have like when it comes to the bird dogs, is there type of breeds that they prefer over there, or is it kind of like here where it varies?
It's really similar to here, that you have your guys that obviously are very specific to a breed. I saw everything from Bracco Italianos over there to Drothars to Brittany's. I will say that old original European blood is different. I see it here now sometimes, but their Brittany's are just more square. They've got a little different look to them. Every setter that I was around in that country was all Laveracks, so there was nothing pointed with its tail up. Everything points flat, and even these dogs I have now are that way. And there was definitely just as much pride over there in their dogs as there is here, and they obviously claimed that theirs were superior in a sense because they were that old original blood. And so there was a lot of arguments had by a fire over the years over that, for sure.
That's awesome. So her grandfather was mostly into the English setters then, right? And that's kind of what led
Yes,
you into that aspect.
absolutely. To my knowledge, he had some Gordons over the years. There were still some really nice Gordons over there that you'd see now and then, and he got into a few of those. And but from the time I knew him and as far back as he really talked about, he was running those English setters, and he had almost 50 years of bloodline sitting in sitting in the kennel out there.
Hmm. Wow, that's amazing. So personally, I'm a big English setter fan. I don't own English setters right now. Me and my wife are renting, so we can't have dogs of our own, sadly. But definitely when we buy a house, I I think that's probably one of my number ones that I'm going to. I grew up with Labradors, and uh, that's mostly what I grew up with growing up because we did a lot of waterfowl up here in northern Utah, up by the bird refuge. And of course, a little bit of mix of upland game with that. But I've had a few opportunities now to hunt behind setters and get to see them, know a few people here in the state of Utah that run setters, and talk about a classy dog. Like they're absolutely amazing. They fit they fit every category that I want. So I like being able to talk to somebody who also appreciates that. So I'm excited for that.
No, and I'm similar. I had a couple labs growing up. I had one real nice chocolate lab when I was just out of high school, because that's like you, predominantly what we did. I needed a dog in the water, and now if I go duck hunt, my brother's got a friend that has a little outfitting deal. We'll go with him once in a while, but we don't hit it very hard, and I just don't need that. I don't need that water dog anymore. And these setters just I they stay once they get in the house, it's like they have an off switch. They're just okay. They're done, and then when it's time to go to work, they go to work, and they're just happy all the time.
That's right. Yeah. And they're amazing dogs. The personality, the go, I love them. So
Yeah.
kind of getting into that, like, how many dogs do you have of your own right now that you have?
So I've just got the one female, and then when I go back to Idaho, Ketty's always pretty good about if she's got Liu. Sometimes I'll still go with her. She's getting older now and starting to have a little trouble, but I'll take her for a day, and then um, she inevitably has one or two others that maybe need a day of just going out in the real world versus trial training or something like that I'll go pick up. For the most part, I run these two that are in North Dakota, and they just kind of go with me starting in September till the end of January. They're just loaded, and if we're on the way to work and we got an extra half hour, we might just dump them in a slough and see what happens. And sometimes we're late to work, and sometimes we're not.
I love it. I love it. So where are you at right now?
So I'm out here in North Dakota in Williston is where I'm
Okay,
living now. Yep.
that makes sense. So you're living in North Dakota from Idaho. Still go visit Idaho?
Yeah, I try to make at least 2 trips with the dogs every year, if I can help it. Typically one in November. Now that I don't have to fight the snakes out here, I'm just I'm not a big snake fan, so I'll wait till end October, 1st November, and I try and make a trip, and then I typically spend the last 2 weeks of January in Idaho and Oregon somewhere.
Nice. I love to hear it. So what took you to North Dakota? I mean, you went from Idaho to there now, so what was that change
So
like?
I mean, it was work originally. Originally, it was work. I came out here a long time ago and had worked for a while and had some ties out here. And I work for a sweet company out here that they're really good about. They don't get to see me a lot in the winter necessarily. I do my best to work as much as I can, but they're pretty open to me traveling and running dogs and being gone quite a bit. And now that I've been out here a few years, I've got some really good friends with some access to ground, and I, I couldn't find this in Idaho. Essentially, what I have access to here with the dogs that I could hunt on the way to work or something like that. And it's become a spot that now I can run dogs year round. It's not too hot. You got 2-3 months in the winter that's a little rough versus the heat in the summer. But I can travel out of here in January, end of December, January, and go back to Idaho and get away from it.
Hey, that's actually a pretty good setup, being able to. I mean, you got primetime hunting over there. I've heard the hunting opportunities are pretty good over there in North Dakota, and being able to leave, head over to Idaho. I've had a few opportunities to hunt Idaho. We are actually about 20 minutes from the lad ourselves, so we get a few hunting opportunities a year to be able to do that. And talk about a great state to hunt birds. Idaho definitely has it.
It's yeah, I've had some great times, and I've had some long days with really good dogs that if there were birds there, they'd have found them, and we never got so much as a point at all, not even a false point. And so some of that Idaho country can be feast or famine for sure.
That's true, very much so. We kind of got that here in Utah too. I mean, we got your hot spots, and then some days you're putting in the work. So I get that.
Yeah, this last fall, my dad jumped in with me for a day, and we went and hit 2 or 3 spots that I've always produced at least a few birds, and we finally just stopped and had a beer on top of the hill and took a little nature walk with the dog and then went home.
Just called it a day. Yeah. There's those days. There's definitely those days. All right, everyone. Quick shout out to our friends at Pet Commute. If you ever tried coordinating dog transport yourself, you know it's not simple. Whether it's a new pup coming home, a finished dog heading to a buyer, a field trial trip, or even, let's be honest, your wife needing her little mutt transported safely, Pet Commute handles it professionally. Rachel and I have personally transported with them, and I can confidently say they are reliable, safe, punctual, and they keep owners updated the entire trip. They offer free quotes, and if you mention Bird Camp Radio, you'll get 10% off your pet's travel. Hit the link in the show notes, comments, or our socials. And then you're saying that you also get the opportunity to hunt Oregon. That is one state in particular that I would like to hunt. I know here on the podcast we've had quite a few guys from Oregon, different parts. Oh, I think we've almost had throughout the whole state at this point. And I would have, before this, I would have never even thought of Oregon as a good state to hunt birds. Man, they got something going over there.
From my experience, and a guy in my position probably should get into it deeper and be tied in a little better with some of those programs and those guys doing it. But that Eastern Oregon country, that's where my dad and grandpa lived and grew up for years. And, they talked about even back in the 70s how great some of the chukar hunting was. They're out of Baker and along that interstate corridor and some of those places. And then you get farther south and it's just as good. And it's predominantly been good for a lot of years. And I think it's just there's a lot of land and not everybody's willing to put the miles on to get into it. And so it helps keep it that way. Yeah, that would definitely make sense. I mean, they're definitely up there when it comes to public property to hunt on. I think over half of the state is public land, if I remember right. If I remember that correctly. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, it could be. I know that eastern side, there's a lot of public, and I've spent days out there, and you might see a truck with a dog box, but the likelihood of seeing them is pretty slim.
Right. That's crazy. Yeah, I need to find some time to be able to get up there and check it out at some point, because man, every single guy has made it sound like a whole lot of fun to be able to hunt it. But
yeah, no, it's a neat place, and if you've got the dogs in shape and you're in shape, I've showed up there not in shape and and you pay for it for sure in some of that country, and you just don't get to travel the miles. But if you can get back into some of that, I've never had a bad day, even if we didn't really get into birds.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it's always a good day hunting at the end of the day.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. No, I got a quick question. So, I mean, I've been asking this for a while now since the season ended. What does the like being off of the bird season, what does it look like for you personally building back up to that during these months of not being able to hunt?
So I try to go back to work for a while and stick around to where everybody remembers who I am to get started. But then I typically let the dogs just kind of lay through February for the most part. They're in shape, so they kind of want to do something, but it's so cold and miserable out here for the most part. They go outside and they don't want to be out there anymore, so they stay pretty relaxed, and they end up kind of getting out of shape. And starting probably the middle of March, we're doing our best to go run them again. I have recently tied in with a couple guys out here that run a lot of these NASTRA events, these trials, and they've been super good. There's a gentleman out here, Eric Bauer. He's really just full of knowledge and open, and has been awesome as far as any questions I had or what I thought I wanted to do with it. And last summer I spent quite a bit of time with them, and there's a little bird dog club out here. They've got a spot we can go run that we're not bothering all the native birds and things like that. And so I try at this year, I didn't dive into the NASTRA deal. I kind of thought about it this winter, but I just didn't pull the trigger on it. And I didn't have dogs ready. I'm just not handy enough to have them quite that set up. I ran a couple last summer, and those guys really helped, and I learned a lot. And I think I'm going to do the same thing this summer. We try to run at least once a week. We're turning dogs loose just to let them run, if nothing else, whether we put birds out for them or not. We're at least getting them out and letting them cover some miles, let them run for 40 minutes to an hour. And they think they're hunting. They don't know any better. And but starting about, typically I would say on a normal year, if I don't bail into this NASTRA, by the middle of June, we're putting birds out once a week and just letting them kind of get back into it and fine tuning a few things. They turned 3 this spring, the 2 I have, and so now it's more just letting them do it than really working on them. There's some small adjustments we make that maybe we picked up a bad habit or two there at the end of hunting season that we're maybe working on. But yeah, we try to go essentially year round minus the month of February. We're trying to run something.
No, that's great to hear. I've heard really good things about those organizations being able to get with other guys within the communities and run dogs, learn different things, and give dogs opportunities to get out there and have some fun during the off season. But no, that's great to hear, man. When does your season start back up in North Dakota?
Well, so typically out here, we're hunting Montana. They're the first week of September because we're right on the border. So we'll go hunt sharptail in Montana there the first part of September. But I believe the rules changed this year to my knowledge, and I think that the first week, if not 10 days, out-of-state hunters can't hunt public land. So that's really going to kind of screw up our start out here. We'll actually probably end up in Idaho hunting grouse or something there the 1st of September. And that way, by the time we get back out here, we can go hunt Montana. There's a lot more public land across the border in Montana, and I just don't have any ties for the sharptail over there yet. I might find some this summer. But if they bump us out a week or 10 days, then we'll start the middle of September, which will actually be about the same time that North Dakota opens for sharptail. And we'll chase them until the sharptail and the Huns until pheasant season opens there about the middle of first 10 days or so of October.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think we start, usually it's September 1, and then run through February 15th with everything. Chuckers ending and on that with Huns. So that's interesting. Hear that with Montana. That's kind of changes things up. But you got a game plan set, so that's always a good thing. Um, when it comes to the sharp tails in Montana and North Dakota, is you have to have like a tag permit or anything like that, or is it just open season for that? I'm just curious.
You just have to have an upland license.
Do you?
I say Montana as an out of state, it was around a Benji somewhere for just a season license to hunt upland game, and so we just buy a license to have it, and then we can sneak across the border whenever. Now that I'm a North Dakota resident, it's really cheap to hunt over here. But like when my dad comes, or I've got a cousin that likes to come out, it's getting more expensive, and you only get 2 weeks at a time. You can buy
Hmm.
a 2 week license in North Dakota to hunt pheasants and sharptail and huns.
Really? Okay. So that's how it works there. Okay. So for Utah, I mean, here when it comes to sharptail and sage grouse, we have a draw system. It's kind of like our big game application. So for the past few years, I've been putting in for both of them and still coming up unsuccessful. So any goal
Yeah,
in the
I
future?
I want to say that Idaho is uh, is similar with their sage grouse, is that you have to apply for a license, and there's zones and everything else for their sage grouse out there.
Yeah, it's definitely getting more difficult as populations are dwindling, but um, hopefully at some point get an opportunity before it's too late. But that's crazy. So in order to hunt in North Dakota, you have an upland game license that you have to buy each year. Is that correct? Like with every species?
Yeah, so in state, I just buy, a regular hunting and fishing license, and I can go hunt all of it. The out of state guys are buying essentially a 2 week bird license. You can
Okay,
use
I
it,
see.
and you can use it set. You can use 7 days and then break it, and then use it for another 7 days if you prefer that. But you have to buy the 2 weeks.
That makes sense. Buy that, can't buy anything less than that. That's cool. No, that's good to know, man. And look forward to hearing how that goes. I mean, you got quite the plan for the year coming up, and got a few states to hunt, and got good bird dogs behind you. It seems like a lot of good years ahead, hopefully, and sounds great. Um, this has been a lot of fun now to have you here on the podcast, get to know you a little bit more, your dogs, and what you're doing out there, um, pursuing upland game. But I always like to ask one last question before we finish up, and that's: do you have any advice that you would give any new upland game hunter or upland game hunters who are already in the tradition? You can answer both of those, or for one. It's all in how you want it.
I'm honestly still pretty new to the upland side of it, comparing myself to these guys that have been doing it for 30, 40 years, obviously. So I'm pretty fresh into the system, and anybody that asks me, I tell them, if you're going to buy a dog, spend the money. If there's not a wait list, go somewhere else. These guys that have really nice dogs, people know it. And if they're not a puppy factory, you're gonna have to wait. You can't just call and get one. And that bloodline will save you more heartache than any trainer ever could. That being said, when you do it, find, if you don't have a friend or a friend of a friend that's in the game that really kind of knows what's going on, find somebody. It's going to cost you a little money up front, but there was an old timer told me one time, he said, if you give these dogs 2 years, they'll give you 10. And it's real. You know, you put the time and energy into them, and it's going to cost some money. It's just how the world is now. But if you can get into a good bloodline with some people that really know, some people you can call and say, hey, I'm having this problem, and they can actually guide you in the right direction, it just takes the stress out of it. Because you're going to have bad days. Dogs are going to run off. They're going to run over birds. You're going to have a lot of bad days. I had a ton of them with this little dog I got with me now. I mean, she's an amazing dog, but she ran over a lot of stuff, and it happens, and you have to let them become a dog.
Hey, I love that. That's honestly great. I mean, like you said, I mean, save yourself a lot of headache when you get into those bloodlines. And like you said, in today's world, you got to spend a little bit of money, and at the end of the day, it's an investment for you. Like you said, the guy, that old timer that told you 2 years turns you into 10. So, I mean, getting out there, doing your research before buying, and then having people in your village. Have people in your village, man. It takes a village.
You can't have enough contacts in a world like this. You know, you might be broke down when you start traveling to hunt, and you just having somebody all over never hurts.
That's right. No, I love that. That's great advice for everybody out there. It's always good to remember things like that. And I just appreciate your time and willingness to come on here and share more about yourself and your journey with upland game and how it's all come together. So thank you again for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, man. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you again, everyone, for listening to the Bird Camp Radio podcast. I hope you enjoyed episode 31 as much as we did with Eric Hobbs. But before you go, we need to release Eric's time. Eric, your time was 36.89. That puts you in 8th place out of everybody. So great job on mixing it up a little bit for us on the game. Once again, everybody, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok on Bird Camp Radio. And as well, don't forget, we do have a YouTube now that you can watch these videos. We also are on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. Please go like, subscribe, and give us a review so we know what you like and what you are not liking. We want to know and get your feedback. So thank you again, and until next time. You've been listening to Bird Camp Radio, where the high pines, marsh valleys, sagebrush seas, and shelf rock ledges always call us back. Until next time, keep your dogs close, your shot true, and your campfire stories ready to share. We'll see you back at camp. Don't miss out on the next episode, where we'll host our next guest on the podcast. You don't want to miss this one. Thank you.